If you're listening to this audiobook right now, something inside you has awakened to a profound truth. The person you are today is not the person you're meant to become. There's a gap between who you currently are and who you have the potential to be. And that gap, it's not a source of shame or inadequacy. It's a compass. It's pointing you toward your best self, the version of you that's been waiting patiently for you to begin the journey of becoming. This moment right now is significant, not because this audiobook contains some secret formula or magic solution that will transform you overnight, but because you've made a choice to invest time in understanding how to become your best self. That choice itself is evidence that your best self is already beginning to emerge, the version of you that's content to drift through life, accepting whatever comes, hoping things get better on their own. That version wouldn't be here. The fact that you are here, engaging with this material, says something crucial. You're ready. Maybe you don't feel ready. Maybe you're uncertain, doubtful, even scared. But you're here. And that's what readiness looks like. Not confidence, not certainty, just willingness to begin. Let me paint you a picture of what I mean by the gap between who you are and who you can become. Imagine two versions of you existing simultaneously. The first version is your current self, the one living your life right now with all its strengths and struggles, successes and setbacks, good days and difficult days. This version has made it this far, which is no small thing. This version has survived every challenge you faced until now. This version deserves respect and appreciation for getting you to this point. But there's another version, your best self. This version has all your same core qualities, your same history, your same fundamental nature. But this version has developed those qualities more fully. This version has healed old wounds that your current self still carries. This version has broken patterns that your current self still repeats. This version lives with intention, while your current self often operates on autopilot. This version makes choices aligned with values, while your current self sometimes acts in opposition to what truly matters. This version wakes up energized with purpose, while your current self sometimes wakes up with dread. This version feels proud of who they're becoming, while your current self might feel frustrated with who they've been. The gap between these two versions is not infinite. It's not unbridgeable. You don't need to become a completely different person. You need to become more fully yourself. The self that's been buried under years of conditioning, under layers of shoulds and supposed tos, under the weight of other people's expectations and your own limiting beliefs. Your best self is not somewhere out there in the distant future. Your best self is already within you, like a seed waiting for the right conditions to sprout and grow. Your best self is not some impossible ideal that exists only in your imagination. It's not a fantasy version of you with different genetics, different circumstances, different history. Your best self is the fullest expression of who you already are. Your strengths maximized, your values honored, your potential realized, your character refined. It's you, but elevated. You, but evolved. You, but fully expressed instead of partially suppressed. Right now, in this moment, your best self already exists as potential energy, waiting to become kinetic. Every capability you need is already within you. Perhaps dormant, perhaps underdeveloped, but present nonetheless. The journey we're beginning together isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more fully yourself. It's about closing the gap between your current self and your best self, one choice at a time, one day at a time, one transformation at a time. Think about the person you are when you're at your absolute best. Maybe it's when you're in flow, completely absorbed in meaningful work. Maybe it's when you're with people who bring out your highest qualities. Maybe it's in those rare moments when you feel completely aligned with your values, when your actions reflect your deepest beliefs, when you're living with integrity and purpose. That person, that's not a fluke. That's not luck. That's a glimpse of your best self, showing you what's possible when you're operating at your highest level. But here's what most people don't understand. Becoming your best self is not a one-time transformation. It's not about having one breakthrough moment, and then you're done, permanently upgraded, forever changed. Becoming your best self is a continuous process, a daily practice, a lifelong journey. It's about making choices aligned with your best self even when, especially when, those choices are difficult. It's about building systems and habits that make living as your best self the path of least resistance instead of the path of most effort. You see, there are two ways to live. The first is reactive, letting circumstances, other people's expectations, old habits, and unconscious patterns determine who you are and how you show up. Most people live this way. They drift through life, shaped by external forces, never taking ownership of their own evolution, never consciously choosing who they're becoming. They wake up one day at 40, 50, 60 and wonder where the years went, why they feel unfulfilled, why the life they imagined never materialized. The second way to live is intentional, consciously choosing who you're becoming, deliberately cultivating the qualities you want to embody, systematically building the habits that make your best self your default self. This requires something most people aren't willing to give: sustained effort, uncomfortable growth, brutal honesty about where you currently are, and unwavering commitment to where you're going. This audiobook is for those choosing the second path, for those ready to stop drifting and start intentionally becoming, for those willing to do the hard work of transformation because they know that staying who they currently are is no longer acceptable, for those who've caught glimpses of their best self and want to make that the permanent reality rather than the occasional exception. Let me tell you something that might challenge your thinking. You're not broken. You don't need to be fixed. The journey to your best self is not about repairing what's wrong with you. It's about developing what's already right with you. It's about recognizing that you have seeds of greatness within you that simply need the right conditions to grow. Your job is to create those conditions through your choices, your habits, your environment, your relationships, your thoughts. Your best self is already inside you, not as a completed product, but as potential waiting for expression. Think of yourself as a sculptor with a block of marble. The masterpiece is already in there. Your job is to chip away everything that isn't the masterpiece, the habits that don't serve you, the beliefs that limit you, the patterns that hold you back, the old identity that's too small for who you're becoming. This process requires two things that seem contradictory but are actually complementary: acceptance and aspiration. You must accept where you currently are, not as a permanent state, but as a starting point. Shame and self-judgment don't create transformation. They create resistance and paralysis. Accept yourself completely as you are right now, and simultaneously hold a clear vision of your best self. The acceptance gives you peace. The aspiration gives you direction. Many people make the mistake of harsh self-judgment, thinking it will motivate change. It doesn't. It creates a toxic relationship with yourself, where growth becomes punishment rather than gift. Your best self doesn't emerge from self-hatred. Your best self emerges from self-love expressed as self-discipline, from caring about yourself enough to do the hard things that help you grow, from respecting your potential enough to invest in developing it. Throughout this journey we're taking together, you'll discover that becoming your best self touches every dimension of your life. It's not just about productivity or success or achievement, though those may follow. It's about who you are when no one's watching. It's about the relationship you have with yourself. It's about living in alignment with your deepest values. It's about expressing your unique gifts. It's about contributing something meaningful. It's about becoming someone you're genuinely proud to be. We're going to explore how to define what best self actually means for you, because it's personal, not universal. We're going to build the foundation of self-discipline that makes transformation possible. We're going to eliminate old patterns that keep pulling you back to your former self. We're going to cultivate daily habits that reinforce your new identity. We're going to learn how to navigate obstacles without abandoning the journey. And we're going to understand how momentum makes the whole process easier over time. But before we dive into the practical steps, I need you to make a commitment. Not to me, to yourself, to your best self. Commit that you will not abandon this journey when it gets difficult, and it will get difficult. Commit that you will show up for yourself even on days when you don't feel motivated. Commit that you will be patient with the process, knowing that becoming your best self is not a sprint, but a lifelong marathon. Commit that you will celebrate small wins along the way instead of only acknowledging the destination. Your best self is not waiting for perfect circumstances. Your best self is not waiting until you have more time, more money, more support, more confidence. Your best self is waiting for one thing only: your decision to begin. Today. Now. This moment. Not the decision to become your best self someday. The decision to start becoming your best self right now. Imperfectly. Messily. One small step at a time. I want you to feel something as we begin this journey together. Hope. Not naive optimism that ignores reality, but genuine hope rooted in the understanding that you have far more capacity for growth than you've been using. Hope that says your best years don't have to be behind you. They can be ahead of you if you commit to continuous evolution. Hope that says it's never too late to become who you're meant to be. Because here's a truth that changes everything. Every single person who ever became their best self started exactly where you are right now. Uncertain, imperfect, with a gap between current reality and desired future. They didn't have any special advantage. They simply decided to begin, and then they kept going. That's the secret. There's no secret. It's decision plus action plus consistency plus time. That's it. That's the formula. And it's available to you right now. So as we stand together at the beginning of this transformative journey, I want you to close your eyes for a moment and picture your best self. Not in vague terms, but specifically. How does your best self move through the world? How does your best self handle challenges? How does your best self treat others? How does your best self spend time? How does your best self feel waking up each morning? Get clear on this vision, because clarity creates pull. When you know who you're becoming, the path forward becomes obvious. Your best self is not some distant destination you may never reach. Your best self is who you become through the daily choice to honor your potential. It's who emerges when you consistently choose growth over comfort, truth over convenience, discipline over distraction. It's who you are when you strip away everything that isn't authentically you. The masks, the people-pleasing, the limiting beliefs, the fear-based decisions. This journey we're beginning is sacred work. It's the most important work you'll ever do, because everything in your life flows from who you are. Your relationships will improve when you become your best self, because you'll show up differently. Your work will improve because you'll bring your full capability. Your health will improve because you'll make choices aligned with someone who values themselves. Your peace will improve because you'll be living in integrity with your values. Are you ready? Are you ready to close the gap between who you are and who you're capable of becoming? Are you ready to do the daily work that transforms potential into reality? Are you ready to become your best self? Not someday, but starting right now. Because your best self is waiting. Not judging you for taking so long to start. Just waiting patiently. Ready to emerge the moment you commit to the journey. And that moment is now. Let's begin this beautiful, challenging, transformative journey of becoming your best self together. Chapter 1. Defining your best self vision. Before we can begin the journey of becoming your best self, we need absolute clarity on what best self actually means. This is where most people go wrong. They have this vague notion of being better, being more, being different, but it's fuzzy, undefined, more feeling than vision, and you cannot become what you cannot clearly see. Vague goals produce vague results. Clarity is power. So we're going to get crystal clear on your best self vision. First, let's understand what best self does not mean. It doesn't mean perfect. Perfection is not only impossible, it's undesirable. The pursuit of perfection leads to paralysis, to harsh self-judgment, to never feeling good enough. Your best self is not flawless. Your best self makes mistakes, has bad days, struggles sometimes. The difference is how your best self responds to those inevitable imperfections. Your best self learns from mistakes instead of being destroyed by them. Your best self has bad days, but doesn't let them become bad weeks. Your best self struggles, but keeps moving forward. Best self also doesn't mean becoming someone else. You're not trying to become some celebrity or influencer or a person you admire. You're not trying to adopt someone else's strengths, values, or path. Your best self is uniquely yours, an expression of your particular combination of strengths, values, experiences, and aspirations. Comparison is the enemy of becoming your best self because it pulls your focus away from your own evolution and onto others' lives. So what does best self actually mean? It means the version of you where your daily choices consistently align with your deepest values, where your actions reflect what you say matters most, where there's integrity between who you say you are and how you actually live. It means the version of you where your natural strengths are fully developed and regularly expressed, where you're not hiding your gifts or playing small, where you're contributing your unique value to the world. Your best self is the version of you with emotional mastery, not emotional suppression, but the ability to feel your feelings fully while not being controlled by them. It's responding rather than reacting. It's choosing your emotional state instead of being a victim of it. It's having healthy relationships because you show up whole rather than seeking others to complete you. Your best self is also the version of you with physical vitality. Not necessarily looking like a fitness model, but having energy, strength, and health that allows you to fully engage with life. It's treating your body with respect because you understand that your physical condition affects everything else. It's making choices that honor the fact that you have only one body and it needs to last. Let me give you a framework for defining your best self that goes beyond vague aspirations into actionable clarity. We're going to explore 5 dimensions of your best self, and in each dimension, you're going to get specific about what your best self looks like. The first dimension is values. Your best self lives in alignment with core values, not values you think you should have, not values that sound good, but the values that genuinely matter to you. What are your non-negotiables? What principles guide your best self? Is it integrity, growth, connection, contribution, freedom, health, creativity? Get specific. Write them down. Your best self makes decisions by asking, does this align with my core values? When you live in alignment with your values, you feel integrated, whole, purposeful. When you violate your values, even if no one knows, you feel fractured. Here's how to identify your true values. Look at your life when you felt most fulfilled, most alive, most like yourself. What values were you honoring in those moments? Conversely, look at times you felt most conflicted or regretful. What values were you violating? Your values aren't aspirational. They're what already matters to you when you're being honest. The second dimension is strengths. Your best self is built on your natural strengths, developed to high levels. Not try and fix all your weaknesses. That's exhausting and yields mediocrity. But taking what you're naturally good at and developing it to excellence. What are you naturally drawn to? What comes easily to you that others find difficult? What do people consistently compliment you on? What activities make time disappear because you're so engaged? Your best self doubles down on strengths rather than spreading energy across trying to be decent at everything. This doesn't mean ignoring catastrophic weaknesses that sabotage you. It means your primary focus is strength development because that's where your greatest contribution lies. When you're using your strengths regularly, work feels like play. You're in flow. You're energized rather than drained. The third dimension is habits and behaviors. Your best self has specific daily habits that reinforce your identity and move you toward your goals. What does your best self do every morning? Every evening? How does your best self handle stress? How does your best self spend free time? How does your best self maintain health? How does your best self continue learning? Get granular here. Don't say my best self exercises. Say my best self move their body for 30 minutes every morning because it creates energy and clarity for the day. Don't say my best self eats healthy. Say my best self fuels their body with whole foods and plans meals in advance because health is a core value. The more specific you are, the more actionable it becomes. The fourth dimension is relationships and contribution. Your best self shows up differently in relationships, more present, more authentic, more generous, more boundaried. How does your best self interact with family, with friends, with colleagues, with strangers? How does your best self contribute to others' lives? How does your best self make the world better? Your best self understands that we don't exist in isolation. We're interconnected, and who you are affects everyone you encounter. Your best self is intentional about that impact, not people-pleasing, not sacrificing yourself, but genuinely contributing from overflow rather than depletion. The fifth dimension is mindset and beliefs. Your best self has a particular way of thinking about challenges, about failure, about growth, about worthiness. What does your best self believe about their capability, about what's possible, about failure and success, about change and growth? This is crucial because your mindset shapes everything. If your best self believes, I can learn anything with enough effort, that creates different behavior than believing, I'm just not good at that. If your best self believes challenges are opportunities to grow, that creates different responses than believing challenges mean I'm on the wrong path. Now here's where this gets practical. Once you've defined your best self across these 5 dimensions, you're going to create what I call a best self statement. This is a written description of your best self in present tense, as if you're already living as that person, not future tense. I will be someone who. That keeps it forever in the future. Present tense. I am someone who. For example, I am someone who values health, growth, and contribution. I start each day with movement and reflection. I approach challenges as opportunities to develop capabilities. I treat my body with respect for nutrition and exercise. I show up fully present in my relationships. I contribute my unique strengths to meaningful work. I make decisions aligned with my values, even when it's difficult. I learn from failures without being defined by them. I continuously evolve into fuller expression of my potential. Write your best self-statement. Make it detailed. Make it specific. Make it true to who you want to become. Then, and this is key, read it every single morning. This is an affirmation for affirmation's sake. This is programming your reticular activating system to notice opportunities, to be your best self. It's reminding yourself who you're becoming, so that when choice points arise throughout your day, You have a clear reference point. Your best self-statement becomes your decision-making filter. When you're tempted to skip the workout, you remember, I am someone who values health and moves my body daily. When you're tempted to react angrily, you remember, I am someone who responds with emotional mastery. When you're tempted to stay in comfort, you remember, I am someone who embraces challenges as growth opportunities. But here's something crucial to understand. Defining your best self is not one and done. Your best self will evolve as you evolve. What your best self looks like at 25 is different from 45, is different from 65. Your values may deepen or shift. Your strengths may develop. Your vision may expand. That's not failure of vision. That's growth. Plan to revisit and refine your best self vision annually. Also understand that your best self is aspirational but achievable. It should stretch you but not break you. If your best self vision requires you to be someone completely different, you've gone too far. If your best self vision is just a slightly better version of current you haven't gone far enough. Find the sweet spot, a vision that excites you, challenges you, but feels authentically like a fuller expression of who you already are at your core. Let me give you a powerful exercise. Close your eyes and fast forward 10 years. You've been living as your best self consistently for a decade. What has changed? How do you carry yourself? How do you spend your days? What have you accomplished? What relationships do you have? How do you feel about yourself? How has your life transformed? Let yourself feel what it's like to be that person. This emotional connection to your future best self creates powerful motivation. Now reverse engineer. If that's who you are in 10 years, who do you need to be in 5 years? In 1 year? In 6 months? What habits do you need to build? What patterns do you need to break? What skills do you need to develop? What relationships do you need to cultivate or release? This reverse engineering turns your 10-year vision into practical next steps. Here's a truth that will serve you. Your best self is not a destination you arrive at. It's a direction you move in. You never arrive at best self and you're done. You're always becoming, always evolving, always growing into fuller expression. And that's beautiful. It means at any age, at any stage, you can continue becoming more of who you're capable of being. Some people hear best self and feel overwhelmed. I'm so far from that. It'll take forever. Maybe it's not possible for me. Stop. That's victim thinking. That's the old self talking, trying to keep you safe in the familiar. Your best self is not impossibly far away. Your best self is one choice away, one decision away, one action away. Every single choice you make is either moving you toward your best self or away from it. Every choice either reinforces the person you're becoming or the person you're leaving behind. You don't have to become your best self overnight. You just have to make one choice today that your best self would make. Then tomorrow make another. Then another. String enough of those choices together, and one day you'll realize, I've become my best self. Not perfectly, not completely, but substantially, meaningfully, really. Let me give you one more powerful distinction. There's a difference between your ideal self and your best self. Your ideal self might be someone with different genetics, different history, different circumstances. That's fantasy. Your best self is who you can actually become given who you actually are. It's grounded in reality while being elevated in aspiration. Don't waste energy wishing you were someone else. Invest energy becoming the best version of the person you actually are. As we close this chapter, I want you to commit to clarity. Commit to getting crystal clear on your best self across the 5 dimensions. Values, strengths, habits, relationships, and mindset. Commit to writing your best self-statement. Commit to reading it daily. Commit to using it as your decision-making filter. Because clarity is not just the first step of this journey. Clarity is the foundation on which everything else is built. Your best self is not vague. Your best self is specific, clear, vivid. And now, you're going to define it with precision. This is not just an intellectual exercise. This is you planting a flag in the future and declaring, "This is who I'm becoming." And once that flag is planted, every subsequent choice becomes a step toward it or away from it. Make it a step toward. Always toward. That's how you become your best self. One clear, intentional step at a time. Chapter 2. Building the foundation, self-discipline. Now that you have crystal clarity on your best self vision, we need to talk about the foundation that makes transformation possible. And that foundation is self-discipline. I know, self-discipline sounds restrictive, punishing, joyless. But let me reframe this completely. Self-discipline is not punishment. Self-discipline is self-love expressed through action. It's caring about your future self enough to do hard things today. It's respecting your potential enough to invest in developing it. It's honoring your vision enough to align your behavior with it. Your best self is built on a foundation of self-discipline, not motivation, because motivation is fickle and unreliable. Not inspiration, because inspiration comes and goes. Not willpower alone, because willpower is a limited resource that depletes throughout the day. But self-discipline, the ability to do what needs to be done regardless of how you feel, that's the bedrock of transformation. Here's what most people misunderstand. They think self-discipline means constantly forcing yourself to do things you hate. That's not sustainable, and it's not effective. True self-discipline means aligning your daily choices with your best self-vision so consistently that it becomes who you are, not just what you do. It means making your best self-behaviors your default rather than your exception. Let me break down what self-discipline actually is in the context of becoming your best self. It's the bridge between intention and action. It's what transforms "I want to be someone who" into "I am someone who." It's choosing your future over your feelings. It's selecting long-term satisfaction over short-term comfort. It's prioritizing who you're becoming over who you've been. Self-discipline for your best self operates at 3 levels. The first level is momentary self-discipline, making the right choice in a single moment. The alarm goes off and you choose to get up rather than hit snooze. You're offered dessert when you're trying to eat healthily, and you choose to decline. Someone criticizes you, and you choose to respond calmly rather than react defensively. These individual moments seem small, but they're everything, because your life is just a string of moments, and your best self is constructed through the accumulation of right choices in those moments. The second level is daily self-discipline, structuring your day around behaviors that reinforce your best self. This is where habits and routines come in, which we'll explore deeply in a later chapter. But understand this. Your best self has a different daily structure than your current self. Your best self starts the day differently, uses time differently, ends the day differently. Daily self-discipline means following that structure even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it. The third level is identity-level self-discipline, making choices that continuously reinforce your best self-identity. This is the deepest level. At this level, self-discipline becomes less about forcing yourself and more about self-expression. When your identity is, "I am someone who values health," choosing the salad over the burger isn't deprivation, it's alignment. When your identity is, "I am someone who follows through," completing what you start isn't grinding, it's being yourself. So how do you build this foundation of self-discipline? Let me give you a framework that makes it practical rather than theoretical. First, understand that self-discipline is like a muscle. It can be strengthened through use, and it can atrophy through neglect. When you exercise self-discipline in one area of your life, it gets stronger in all areas. When you let it slide in one area, it weakens everywhere. This means you want to start small and specific. Don't try to overhaul your entire life overnight. Pick one area where you'll practice self-discipline consistently. Maybe it's making your bed every morning. Maybe it's meditating for 5 minutes daily. Maybe it's going to bed at a consistent time. The specific behavior matters less than the consistency. You're not just building a habit. You're building the meta skill of self-discipline. Here's why starting small is crucial. Every time you keep a commitment to yourself, you're building self-trust. You're proving to yourself that your word means something. You're demonstrating that you can be counted on, even by yourself. And every time you break a commitment to yourself, even a small one, you're eroding that trust. You're teaching yourself that your commitments are optional, that your word doesn't matter, that you can't rely on yourself. Your best self has complete self-trust. Your best self knows that when you commit to something, it happens, not because you're perfect, but because you're committed. Building that self-trust starts with small commitments you keep consistently. One commitment, every single day, no exceptions. Watch how this transforms not just your behavior, but your identity. Let's talk about what undermines self-discipline, because understanding the enemy helps you defend against it. The primary enemies of self-discipline are not external. They're internal. The first enemy is immediate gratification. We live in a culture of instant everything, instant food, instant entertainment, instant communication, instant information. Our brains are being wired for immediate reward, making delayed gratification increasingly difficult. But here's the truth. Everything worth having requires delayed gratification. Your best self is not built through choices that feel good immediately. It's built through choices that feel hard now, but pay dividends later. The discipline to work out consistently doesn't feel as good as sleeping in. But 3 months later, the body you've built, the energy you have, the confidence you feel, that's the payoff. Self-discipline is trading momentary comfort for lasting satisfaction. The second enemy is decision fatigue. Every decision you make depletes your mental energy slightly. By the end of the day, you've made hundreds of decisions, and your discipline is weakest right when evening temptations are strongest. This is why your best self uses systems and routines that eliminate unnecessary decisions. You don't decide whether to work out. It's scheduled. You don't decide what to eat. It's planned. You conserve your decision-making energy for what matters most. The third enemy is emotional turbulence. When you're stressed, tired, anxious, upset, or overwhelmed, self-discipline becomes exponentially harder. Your brain defaults to comfort-seeking behavior. This is natural, but it's also where many people derail their progress. Your best self doesn't require perfect emotional conditions to maintain discipline. Your best self has discipline, especially when emotions are difficult. Here's a powerful strategy. Anticipate emotional turbulence and predecide your response. When I'm stressed, I will not cope by eating junk food. I will go for a walk. When I'm tired, I will not skip my workout. I will do a shorter version. When I'm upset, I will not lash out. I will take 3 deep breaths before responding. These predecisions remove the mental burden of choosing in the moment when discipline is hardest. Now let me teach you something that will transform your relationship with self-discipline. It gets easier, dramatically easier. At first, self-discipline requires enormous effort. Every right choice feels like pushing a boulder uphill. But as you build the self-discipline muscle, as you accumulate evidence of your own reliability, as you develop identity-level integration, it requires less and less force. Eventually, disciplined behavior becomes your default, and it requires discipline to deviate from it. I call this the discipline threshold. Before you cross this threshold, discipline is hard and undiscipline is easy. After you cross it, discipline is easy and undisciplined feels wrong. The key is persisting through the difficult early phase long enough to reach the threshold. Most people quit right before they would have crossed it, thinking this is always going to be this hard. It's not. It gets easier. Trust the process. Here's another crucial insight. Self-discipline is not about never struggling. Your best self still struggles sometimes. The difference is that your best self struggles and maintains discipline anyway. There will be days when getting up early feels impossible, when the workout feels like torture, when the healthy meal tastes bland, when the work feels tedious. Your best self does it anyway, not through superhuman willpower, but through commitment to identity. This is who I am. This is what I do. Let me give you a framework for maintaining self-discipline when it's hardest, because this is where most people need help. When you're tempted to break discipline, pause and do what I call the future self-check. Ask yourself, how will my best self feel about this choice in 24 hours? In 1 week? In 1 year? This simple question creates distance between impulse and action. It reconnects you with your vision. It reminds you why the discipline matters. Most undisciplined choices feel good now, but terrible later. Most disciplined choices feel hard now, but excellent later. When you do the future self-check, you're essentially time traveling to get perspective. You're asking the version of you who will live with the consequences of this choice what they think. And almost always, your future self votes for discipline. Another powerful practice is what I call discipline stacking. This is where you link disciplined behaviors together so that completing one triggers the next. Your alarm goes off cue. You immediately get out of bed. You drink a glass of water. You do 5 minutes of stretching. You meditate for 10 minutes. You journal for 5 minutes. You shower. Each behavior triggers the next, creating momentum. By the time your discipline would normally waver, you're already through multiple disciplined behaviors, and it's easier to continue than to stop. Let's address a common concern. But don't I need balance? Isn't too much discipline unhealthy? This misunderstands what self-discipline actually is. Self-discipline is not rigid control that never allows pleasure or spontaneity. Self-discipline is having control so that you can consciously choose when to be structured and when to be spontaneous, when to push and when to rest, when to be disciplined and when to relax. Your best self includes both discipline and enjoyment, both structure and flexibility, both work and play. The discipline is what makes the enjoyment meaningful. When you've earned your rest through productive work, it feels satisfying in a way that mindless escape never does. When you've maintained your health through discipline, you can enjoy occasional indulgences without guilt. Self-discipline doesn't eliminate joy. It enhances it by ensuring your pleasures don't undermine your progress. Here's something powerful to understand. Self-discipline compounds. Just like financial interest compounds over time, self-discipline compounds. Each disciplined choice makes the next one slightly easier. Each day of maintained discipline makes the next day slightly more automatic. Each week of consistency makes the next week slightly less effortful. Given enough time, the compound effect of self-discipline transforms not just your behaviors, but your entire life. As we close this chapter on building the foundation of self-discipline, I want you to internalize this truth. Self-discipline is love. It's loving yourself enough to do what's hard. It's loving your future self enough to make choices today that they'll thank you for tomorrow. It's loving your potential enough to invest in developing it. It's loving your vision enough to align your actions with it. Your best self is not built on motivation or inspiration or perfect circumstances. Your best self is built on the foundation of self-discipline, doing what needs to be done, day after day, regardless of how you feel, because you're committed to who you're becoming. Start building that foundation today. One small commitment, kept consistently. Watch as it transforms everything. Chapter 3. Eliminating the old self, breaking bad patterns. Becoming your best self is not just about adding new behaviors. It's also about eliminating old ones. About breaking patterns that no longer serve you. About releasing the old identity that's keeping you trapped in a smaller version of who you can be. This is difficult work because these patterns feel like you. They've been with you for years, maybe decades. They're familiar. They're comfortable. They're home, even when home is unhealthy. But here's the truth. You cannot fully step into your best self while still clutching your old self. There's not enough room for both. One must yield to the other. And if you're not actively, intentionally, persistently eliminating the old self, it will keep pulling you back. Because the old self is strong. It's established. It has neural pathways worn deep by years of repetition. It has momentum, and it doesn't want to die. Let me be clear about what we're talking about here. We're talking about procrastination patterns that keep you from taking action toward your goals. We're talking about laziness, not inability, but unwillingness to do what you know you should do. We're talking about self-sabotage, where part of you undermines the progress another part of you is trying to make. We're talking about limiting beliefs that whisper you can't every time you try to stretch beyond your comfort zone. We're talking about the stories you tell yourself about who you are. I'm just not a morning person. I'm not good with money. I'm naturally anxious. I'm not the type who. These stories are not truth. They're habits. Habits of thinking. Habits of identity. And they can be changed, but not by adding new behaviors on top of them. They must be directly confronted and dismantled. Understanding why we resist becoming our best self is crucial. On the surface, it seems absurd. Who wouldn't want to become their best self? Who wouldn't want to live with more health, energy, purpose, success, peace? But resistance is real, and it's powerful. Let me explain why. First, there's fear of the unknown. Your current self, even if unsatisfying, is known. You understand its contours, its limitations, its safety zones. Your best self is unknown territory. What if you become your best self and people don't like you anymore? What if you become your best self and you're still not happy? What if you fail in the attempt? The fear of the unknown keeps many people trapped in the familiar prison of their current self. Second, there's secondary gain from current patterns. That procrastination you hate, it also protects you from the discomfort of trying and potentially failing. That laziness that frustrates you, it also saves you from the vulnerability of putting yourself out there. That anxiety that limits you, it also keeps you safe from taking risks. Every negative pattern provides some hidden benefit, and until you acknowledge that benefit, the pattern will persist because part of you still needs it. Third, there's identity protection. You've built an identity around being a certain way. Maybe you're the laid-back one in your social circle. Becoming your best self, disciplined, driven, accomplished, might threaten that identity. Maybe you've bonded with others over shared struggles. Getting past those struggles might leave you feeling isolated from that community. Your identity, even when it's limiting, provides belonging. Changing it creates social risk. So how do we eliminate the old self despite these powerful forces maintaining it? We start with brutal honesty. You must identify your specific patterns that are incompatible with your best self. Not vague awareness, but specific identification. Not, I procrastinate sometimes. But I avoid difficult conversations for weeks. I delay starting important projects until deadlines force action. I waste hours on social media instead of working on my goals. Write down your specific patterns that need to break. Get them out of your head and onto paper where you can see them clearly. For each pattern, ask yourself, when does this pattern show up? What triggers it? What immediate benefit do I get from it? What long-term cost does it carry? What would my best self do instead in this situation? This level of analysis transforms vague awareness into actionable insight. Now, here's where it gets challenging. You cannot eliminate a pattern by fighting it directly. What you resist persists. What you focus on grows. If you try to stop procrastinating by constantly telling yourself, "Don't procrastinate," you're just reinforcing the procrastination pathway in your brain. Instead, you eliminate old patterns by replacing them with new ones. You crowd out the old self by fully occupying yourself with being your best self. Let me give you a practical framework. For each old pattern you've identified, create a pattern interrupt followed by a new response. A pattern interrupt is something that breaks the automatic flow from trigger to old behavior. Then you install a new response that aligns with your best self. For example, if your pattern is reaching for your phone first thing in the morning and getting lost in social media, your pattern interrupt might be keeping your phone in another room overnight. The new response might be starting your day with your best self statement, movement, and meditation before you ever touch your phone. The pattern interrupt breaks the automation. The new response creates a different pathway. If your pattern is avoiding difficult conversations, your pattern interrupt might be writing down what you need to say before the conversation, which forces you to clarify and commit. The new response might be scheduling the conversation immediately rather than when the time feels right, which never comes. You're not trying to eliminate the discomfort. You're changing your relationship with it. Here's something crucial. Breaking old patterns requires environmental design. Your environment is either supporting your best self or enabling your old self. If you're trying to eat healthier, but your pantry is full of junk food, you're fighting an uphill battle. If you're trying to be more productive, but your workspace is chaotic and distracting, you're making it harder than it needs to be. Your best self needs an environment that supports your best self behaviors and makes old behaviors difficult. This might mean unsubscribing from email lists that tempt you to waste money, blocking apps that waste your time, removing alcohol from your home if you're trying to drink less, finding new social activities if your current friend group enables bad habits. Environmental design is not willpower, it's wisdom. Let's talk about the procrastination pattern specifically because it's so common and so destructive. Procrastination is not laziness. It's fear management. You procrastinate on things that make you anxious, that threaten your competence, that might lead to judgment or failure. Understanding this transforms how you address it. You don't eliminate procrastination by trying to force yourself to work. You eliminate it by addressing the underlying fear. Ask yourself, what am I afraid will happen if I do this thing I'm avoiding? Get specific. Usually it's fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of inadequacy, fear of success, and its responsibilities. Once you identify the fear, you can address it directly. You can reality check it. Is this fear based on facts or imagination? You can catastrophize it. What's the absolute worst that could happen? Usually you realize the fear is disproportionate to reality. Then you can use what I call the 2-minute start. Commit to working on the avoided task for just 2 minutes. Just 2. Anyone can do anything for 2 minutes. This breaks the procrastination loop because starting is the hardest part. Once you start, momentum builds. Often you'll continue far beyond 2 minutes. But even if you don't, you've practiced starting, which is the skill you need to develop. Now let's address the laziness pattern, which is different from procrastination. Laziness is not about fear. It's about energy management and motivation alignment. If you're consistently too lazy to work on something, it means one of two things. Either you're genuinely depleted and need rest, or you're not connected to why this thing matters. If it's depletion, the answer is not forcing yourself harder. It's addressing the root cause of depletion. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you eating well? Are you trying to maintain an unsustainable pace? Your best self includes rest and recovery. Pushing through genuine depletion doesn't build discipline, it builds burnout. Sometimes laziness is your body's way of saying, I need recovery. Honor that. But if it's not depletion, if you have energy for things you enjoy, but not for things you should do, that's a motivation problem. You're not connected to your why. You're doing things from obligation rather than aspiration. Return to your best self-vision. How does this task connect to who you're becoming? When you have a strong enough why, the how becomes easier. Here's something powerful about eliminating old patterns. You don't have to do it perfectly. You don't have to never procrastinate again, never be lazy again, never slip into old behaviors. That's an unrealistic standard that sets you up for failure. What you need is to catch yourself faster, recover quicker, and return to your best self more reliably. Your old self will still whisper. Old patterns will still attempt to assert themselves. That's normal. That's expected. What changes is how long you let them persist before you interrupt them. At first, you might indulge old patterns for days before catching yourself, then hours, then minutes. Eventually, the old pattern barely gets started before you recognize it and choose differently. That's progress. That's your best self emerging. Let me give you one more powerful practice. The end of day review. Every evening, spend 5 minutes reflecting on your day through the lens of best self versus old self. Where did you show up as your best self today? Where did old patterns emerge? What triggered them? What will you do differently tomorrow? This daily reflection keeps you conscious of patterns instead of living on autopilot. Consciousness is the first requirement for change. As we close this chapter on eliminating the old self, understand this. You're not destroying who you've been. You're evolving beyond it. You're outgrowing it. Like a snake shedding old skin. You're releasing what no longer fits so you can grow. The old self served its purpose. It got you here, but it can't get you where you're going. Thank it for its service and let it go. Your best self is not waiting for you to be perfect. Your best self is waiting for you to be willing. Willing to identify old patterns. Willing to interrupt them. Willing to install new ones. Willing to do this daily until the new patterns become who you are. That willingness is all you need. With it, every old pattern can be transformed. Without it, no strategy will work. Choose willingness. Choose evolution. Choose your best self. Chapter 4. Cultivating your best self daily habits. Your best self is not created in one dramatic moment of transformation. It's cultivated through daily habits, small, consistent actions that compound over time to create profound change. This is where the theoretical becomes practical, where the vision becomes reality, where who you want to become meets how you actually live. Your daily habits are the building blocks of your best self, and in this chapter, we're going to design those habits with intention and precision. First, let's understand why habits are so crucial to becoming your best self. Habits are automatic behaviors that bypass conscious decision-making. They're stored in a different part of your brain than deliberate choices. This means once a behavior becomes habitual, it requires minimal willpower or discipline to maintain. It's just what you do. This is crucial because willpower is limited, but habits are automatic. Your goal is to make your best self behaviors so habitual that they become your default rather than something you have to force. The most successful people are not successful because they make great decisions all day long. They're successful because they've built habits that automatically generate great outcomes. Their success looks effortless from the outside because it's largely automatic on the inside. They don't decide whether to work out. It's just part of their morning. They don't decide whether to read. It's just part of their evening. The habits do the heavy lifting. Let's design your best self daily habits across the key domains of life. We'll start with your morning, because how you start your day sets the trajectory for everything that follows. Your best self has a morning routine that's non-negotiable, not flexible based on how you feel, not optional depending on circumstances, but a sacred ritual that grounds you in your identity and prepares you for the day ahead. Here's what a best self morning routine might include, though you'll customize this to your specific vision and circumstances. It starts the night before with consistent sleep and wake times. Your best self doesn't fight your circadian rhythm. You honor it. You go to bed at a time that allows adequate sleep, and you wake at a consistent time that gives you space for your morning ritual before the demands of the day begin. When your alarm goes off, your best self doesn't negotiate. No snooze button. No, just 5 more minutes. You've set the alarm intentionally, and you honor that intention. The first win of the day happens in the first moment of the day. You get up immediately, and this simple act of discipline sets a tone of integrity. I do what I say I'm going to do. Within minutes of waking, your best self hydrates. You've gone 8 hours without water, and your body needs it. This is a simple act of self-care that signals, I honor my physical needs. I treat my body with respect. Then movement. Not necessarily intense exercise yet, though that may come later, but some form of movement that gets blood flowing and energy rising. Maybe it's stretching. Maybe it's yoga. Maybe it's a short walk. Movement tells your body it's time to be awake and engaged. Then comes what I call the connection practices. Practices that connect you to your best self, your purpose, your vision. This might include meditation or a mindfulness practice. Just 10 minutes of sitting in stillness, observing your thoughts, cultivating presence. This practice builds the meta skill of awareness, which is crucial for living intentionally rather than reactively. When you're aware of your thoughts and emotions, you can choose your responses rather than being controlled by automatic reactions. This might include journaling. Maybe you write your best self statement. Maybe you write 3 things you're grateful for. Maybe you write your intentions for the day. Maybe you brain dump any anxieties or thoughts cluttering your mind. Journaling creates clarity and strengthens the connection between your internal world and your external life. This might include visualization, spending a few minutes vividly imagining yourself moving through your day as your best self, how you show up in meetings, how you handle challenges, how you interact with others, how you maintain energy and focus. This mental rehearsal actually strengthens the neural pathways associated with those behaviors, making them more likely to manifest. Then comes nutrition. Your best self doesn't skip breakfast or grab whatever's convenient. You fuel your body intentionally. What you put in your body affects your energy, your mood, your focus, your health. Your best self knows this and makes choices accordingly. This doesn't mean never enjoying indulgent food. It means your default is nourishment, and indulgence is occasional and conscious. Before the day's demands begin, your best self does one thing aligned with long-term goals. Maybe it's 30 minutes of focused work on an important project. Maybe it's reading for learning or growth. Maybe it's working out. The specific activity matters less than the principle. Your best self prioritizes important, not urgent work before getting swept into the urgent, not important demands of the day. This morning routine might take 60 to 90 minutes. That might sound like a lot, but consider, you're investing 90 minutes to set yourself up for a high-quality 16-hour day. That's a 6% investment that determines the quality of the remaining 94%. Your best self makes that trade happily. And over time, this morning routine becomes so integrated into your identity that not doing it would feel strange. Now let's talk about your best self during the day. The hours when most people are reactive, responding to demands, putting out fires. getting pulled in different directions. Your best self moves through the day differently, with intention, with priorities, with energy management. Your best self works in aligned blocks of focused time, not constant distraction and task switching, which fragments your attention and drains your energy, but focused blocks, maybe 60 or 90 minutes, where you're fully present with one important task. Your phone is off or away. Your email is closed. Your door is shut. You're fully engaged. Then you take a real break. Not a scroll through social media while eating at your desk break. A real break where you move, breathe, reset. Your best self protects boundaries. You say no to requests that don't align with your priorities or values. Not rudely, but firmly. You protect your time, your energy, your attention. You recognize that every yes to something is a no to something else, and you choose consciously. Your best self doesn't people please at the expense of self-abandonment. Your best self manages energy, not just time. You know your natural energy rhythms, when you're most focused, most creative, most social, and you schedule accordingly. You don't fight your nature. You work with it. High focus work gets your peak hours. Low energy work gets your valley hours. This isn't luxury. It's wisdom. Your best self also maintains physical vitality throughout the day. You don't sit for hours unmoving. You take movement breaks. You don't dehydrate. You drink water consistently. You don't skip meals or eat garbage. You fuel yourself well. These small acts of self-care compound throughout the day into energy and well-being. As your workday ends, your best self has a transition ritual. Not just collapsing into evening without thought, but intentionally closing one phase and opening another. Maybe you review your day, what went well, what to adjust. Maybe you plan tomorrow so you can leave work psychologically at work. Maybe you change clothes to signal the shift. Maybe you take a short walk. This transition ritual matters because it prevents work from bleeding into personal time and personal stress from contaminating your evening. Your best self-evening routine is as intentional as your morning routine. This is time for connection, with family, with friends, with yourself. Not time for zoning out into screens and mindless consumption. Quality evening time might include meaningful conversation, reading, creating, playing, learning. Activities that fill you up rather than numb you out. Your best self also has an evening wind-down routine that prepares for quality sleep. This might include dimming lights an hour before bed, putting away screens 30 minutes before bed, perhaps gentle stretching or reading, perhaps reflection or gratitude practice. You're signaling to your body that it's time to transition to rest. And you go to bed at a consistent time because you respect your body's need for recovery. Let me give you a framework for building these best self habits sustainably. Don't try to install all of these at once. That's overwhelming and unsustainable. Instead, use what I call sequential habit installation. You start with one foundational habit, maybe waking at a consistent time. You maintain that habit every single day until it's automatic, until not doing it would feel wrong. For most habits, this takes 30 to 60 days of consistent practice. Once that habit is solid, you add the next one, maybe morning hydration. Again, you maintain it consistently until it's automatic. Then you add the next, maybe morning movement. You're building a stack of habits, one at a time, each becoming automatic before you add the next. This might seem slow, but in 1 year, you can install 12 new habits. Imagine who you'd be with 12 solid best self habits running automatically. That's transformation. Here's another crucial principle. Anchor new habits to existing ones. This is called habit stacking. Your existing habits are already automatic, so they're perfect triggers for new habits. For example, after I pour my morning coffee, existing habit, I will write 3 things I'm grateful for, new habit. After I brush my teeth at night, existing habit. I will lay out my workout clothes for tomorrow, new habit. The existing habit triggers the new habit, making it easier to remember and maintain. Also, make your habits ridiculously easy at first. Want to meditate daily? Start with 2 minutes, not 20 minutes. 2. Want to journal? Start with 3 sentences. Want to work out? Start with 1 push-up. This sounds absurd, but it works because you're eliminating the resistance. You can always do more than the minimum, and you often will. But the minimum is so easy that you can maintain it even on terrible days, and maintaining the streak is what builds the habit. Let's address the biggest challenge with habits: consistency when life gets chaotic. Because life will get chaotic. Unexpected demands will arise. Energy will be low some days. Motivation will wane. This is where most people's habit building fails. They maintain their habits when conditions are perfect, but they abandon them when life gets hard. Then they have to start over from scratch. Your best self maintains habits, especially when conditions are difficult. Not perfectly. Maybe you do the minimum version, but you don't break the streak. Because breaking the streak has momentum-destroying consequences. 1 missed day becomes 2, becomes 3, becomes, I guess I'm not a habit person. Maintaining the habit, even minimally, keeps the identity intact. I am someone who does this. Here's a powerful practice. Create 3 versions of each important habit. The full version is what you do on normal days. The minimum version is what you do on challenging days. The emergency version is what you do on absolute worst-case days. For example, exercise. Full version equals 60-minute workout. Minimum version equals 20-minute workout. Emergency version equals 1 push-up before bed. You're maintaining the identity and the streak even on disaster days. One more crucial element. Track your habits visibly. Use a calendar where you mark an X for each day you complete the habit. Use a habit app. Use a journal. Something where you can see your streak building. This visual representation is psychologically powerful. It creates momentum. After 2 weeks of unbroken excess, you don't want to break the chain. The streak itself becomes motivation. As we close this chapter on cultivating daily habits, understand that your habits are your destiny. Who you are is what you repeatedly do. Your best self is not one grand gesture. It's thousands of small, right choices compounded over time through habitual action. Design those habits intentionally. Install them sequentially. Maintain them consistently. And watch as they transform not just your behavior, but your identity. You become your habits. Make your habits those of your best self. Chapter 5. Overcoming obstacles on the journey. The journey to becoming your best self is not a smooth upward climb. It's messy. It's nonlinear. There will be obstacles, external circumstances that challenge you, internal resistance that sabotages you, setbacks that discourage you. How you navigate these obstacles determines whether you reach your best self or remain stuck in patterns that no longer serve you. This chapter is about developing the resilience, the adaptability, and the mindset that turns obstacles into opportunities for growth. First, let's normalize something crucial. Obstacles are not evidence that you're on the wrong path. They're evidence that you're on a path that matters. One that requires growth. If becoming your best self were easy, you'd already be there. The obstacles exist to develop qualities you need, but don't yet have. Patience, persistence, creativity, courage, resilience. They're not punishments. They're invitations to become stronger. There are 2 types of obstacles you'll face: external and internal. External obstacles are circumstances, lost job, financial stress, health issues, relationship problems, unexpected responsibilities. These are real, challenging, often outside your control. Internal obstacles are psychological: fear, doubt, self-sabotage, limiting beliefs, old patterns reasserting themselves. These are often more challenging than external obstacles because they're invisible and can operate without your conscious awareness. Let's start with external obstacles, because they're what most people focus on when progress stalls. Life throws curveballs. You're committed to a workout routine, and you get injured. You're building a business, and the market shifts. You're working on relationships, and someone betrays your trust. These circumstances are genuinely difficult. But here's what your best self understands. Circumstances don't determine outcomes. Responses do. Viktor Frankl, who survived Nazi concentration camps, observed that between stimulus and response there's a space, and in that space lies your power to choose your response. External circumstances are the stimulus. Your response is where your power lies. You cannot control what happens to you. You can absolutely control how you interpret it, what meaning you assign to it, and what action you take because of it. When external obstacles arise, your old self asks, "Why is this happening to me?" Your best self asks, "What is this teaching me? How can I grow through this? What's the opportunity here?" This shift from victim to student, from passive to active, from powerless to empowered changes everything. The obstacle doesn't disappear, but your relationship with it transforms. Let me give you a framework for navigating external obstacles that I call the AAA response. Accept, adapt, advance. First, accept the reality of the obstacle, not with resignation, but with clear-eyed acknowledgement. Denial wastes energy. Acceptance frees energy for response. This is the situation. I didn't choose it, but it's real. Second, adapt your approach based on new circumstances. Your original plan may no longer work. That's okay. Flexibility is a strength, not a weakness. Can't go to the gym because you're injured? Adapt. Do physical therapy exercises. Focus on nutrition. Work on mental skills. Can't work on your business because of time constraints? Adapt. Wake earlier. Eliminate time wasters. Focus on highest leverage activities. Obstacles require creativity. Your best self is creative under constraints. Third, advance despite the obstacle. Find a way forward, even if it's not the path you originally envisioned. Your best self doesn't wait for perfect conditions. Your best self finds a way or makes a way. Small progress despite obstacles maintains momentum and demonstrates that you're not controlled by circumstances. This is crucial for maintaining your best self-identity. I am someone who keeps moving forward no matter what. Now let's talk about internal obstacles, which are often more insidious because they masquerade as truth. Fear whispers, "You're not capable of this." Doubt whispers, "This won't work for you." Self-sabotage whispers, "You don't really deserve success." These internal voices are remnants of old programming, old wounds, old identities. They're not truth, but they feel true, which makes them powerful. The internal obstacle that stops most people is fear of failure. You start moving toward your best self. You make progress, and then fear arises. What if I can't maintain this? What if I fail? What if I try my hardest, and I'm still not enough? This fear is so uncomfortable that many people sabotage themselves preemptively. They stop trying before they can fail. They choose the known pain of staying stuck over the unknown risk of going for it. Your best self has a completely different relationship with failure. Your best self sees failure as data, not identity. Failure is feedback. It's information about what worked and what didn't. It's not evidence of your inadequacy. It's evidence of your courage to try. The only real failure is not trying at all because you're too afraid to risk looking foolish. Here's how to reframe failure. Every successful person has failed more than unsuccessful people have tried. Success is not the absence of failure. It's the willingness to fail repeatedly in pursuit of what matters. Your best self fails forward, learning, adjusting, trying again. Your old self fails backwards, using failure as evidence of unworthiness, retreating to safety, never trying again. Another internal obstacle is perfectionism, which sounds like an asset, but is actually a liability. Perfectionism says, if I can't do it perfectly, I won't do it at all. This keeps you stuck because nothing is ever perfect on first attempt. Your best self embraces excellent effort over perfect results. Your best self knows that done is better than perfect, that consistency beats occasional brilliance, that messy action beats perfect planning. When perfectionism arises, counter it with this question: what would this look like if it were easy? Perfectionism makes everything complicated, effortful, anxiety-inducing. Your best self finds simple, sustainable approaches, not perfect approaches, effective approaches. This shift from perfect to effective is liberating. Let's talk about the obstacle of self-sabotage, which is particularly painful because you're the one creating it. You're making progress, building momentum, and then you do something that undermines everything. You binge eat after weeks of healthy eating. You skip workouts after establishing a routine. You pick a fight with someone you're building a good relationship with. Why? Why would you sabotage your own progress? Usually, self-sabotage emerges from two sources. First, subconscious unworthiness. Deep down, part of you doesn't believe you deserve the success you're creating. So when you start succeeding, that part panics and sabotages to return you to the familiar level of struggle you're accustomed to. Second, fear of identity change. As you become your best self, you're leaving behind your old identity. That's scary. Part of you clings to the familiar, even when the familiar is limiting. Self-sabotage is that part's attempt to keep you in the identity you know. The way through self-sabotage is awareness and compassion. When you notice yourself self-sabotaging, don't add shame on top. That just creates more resistance. Instead, get curious. What am I afraid of? What old belief is being triggered? What part of me feels unsafe with this change? Often, simply naming the fear and the old belief diminishes their power. Then you can consciously choose your best self-response. Another major internal obstacle is comparison. You're making progress toward your best self, and then you see someone else who seems further along. Suddenly your progress feels inadequate. Your journey feels too slow. Your results feel too small. Comparison is the thief of joy and the killer of motivation. It shifts your focus from your own growth to others' highlight reels. Your best self doesn't compare. Your best self competes only with who you were yesterday. Are you more disciplined than last week? More aligned with your values than last month? Closer to your vision than last year? That's the only comparison that matters. Everyone else is on their own journey, their own timeline, with their own challenges and advantages. Your job is your journey, not theirs. Let's discuss the obstacle of setbacks, which are inevitable on any worthwhile journey. You're building momentum. You're feeling good about your progress. And then something happens. You get sick. You have a crisis. You experience loss. And your best self-habits fall away. You lose momentum. You feel like you're back at square one. This is perhaps the most discouraging experience in personal growth. Here's what your best self knows that your old self doesn't. Setbacks don't erase progress. You haven't lost everything you've built. Yes, you've lost momentum. Yes, you'll need to rebuild some habits. But the person who built those habits and that momentum the first time still exists. That's you. And you can do it again, faster this time, because you've learned from the first iteration. The key after a setback is immediate re-engagement, not waiting until Monday. Not waiting until you feel motivated again. Not waiting until circumstances improve. Immediately, the moment you're able, you return to your best self-practices, even minimally. One workout, one healthy meal, one morning routine. You're proving to yourself that setbacks are temporary, that your best self is still there, that you are someone who gets back up. Here's a powerful mindset shift for obstacles. What if obstacles aren't interrupting your journey? They are your journey. What if the obstacles are where the actual transformation happens? When everything is easy, you're not growing. You're just coasting on existing capabilities. When obstacles arise, you're being invited to develop new capabilities. The obstacle is the path. This is what Nassim Taleb calls anti-fragility. Not just resilience, bouncing back to baseline, but actually becoming stronger through stressors. Your best self is anti-fragile. Each obstacle overcome makes you more capable, more confident, more resilient. You're not returning to baseline after obstacles. You're transcending to a new level. The obstacle literally makes you better. Let me give you a practice for when you're facing an obstacle that feels overwhelming. It's called the zoom out/zoom in technique. First, zoom out. Look at your life from a broader perspective. 5 years from now, will this obstacle matter? Often, obstacles that feel enormous in the moment shrink when viewed from a broader time frame. This creates emotional space and reduces anxiety. Then zoom in. What's the absolute smallest action you can take right now to address this obstacle or move forward despite it? Not solving the entire problem. Just one small action. Then take it. Then ask again. One small action at a time. You navigate through obstacles that feel insurmountable when viewed as a whole. As we close this chapter on overcoming obstacles, I want you to internalize this. Obstacles are not unfortunate interruptions to your journey. They are the crucible in which your best self is forged. Every obstacle you navigate successfully becomes evidence of your capability. Every setback you recover from becomes proof of your resilience. Every fear you face becomes demonstration of your courage. Your best self is not someone who never encounters obstacles. Your best self is someone who faces obstacles and keeps going anyway, who adapts when necessary, who persists when it's difficult, who learns from every experience, who becomes stronger through every challenge. That's who you're becoming, one obstacle at a time. Welcome them. They're making you who you're meant to be. Chapter 6. Momentum and Becoming Unstoppable. We're approaching the culmination of this journey, where everything we've discussed comes together into a powerful force, momentum. When you've defined your best self-vision, built self-discipline, broken old patterns, installed new habits, and learned to navigate obstacles, something remarkable happens. You build momentum. And with enough momentum, you become unstoppable. Not invincible. You'll still face challenges, but unstoppable in your commitment to being your best self regardless of circumstances. Momentum is what happens when your actions compound, when your habits reinforce each other, when your identity shift becomes self-sustaining. It's the transition from pushing yourself to being pulled forward by your own progress. It's when becoming your best self stops being something you're trying to do and starts being who you are. Think of it like this. At first, every choice to be your best self requires conscious effort. You're fighting inertia, fighting old patterns, fighting familiarity. It's hard, but as you string together days, weeks, months of best self choices, something shifts. The choices become easier. The habits become automatic. The identity integrates. You've built momentum, and now momentum is carrying you forward. This momentum operates at multiple levels simultaneously. There's behavioral momentum. Your best self habits have become so ingrained that maintaining them requires less effort than breaking them. There's psychological momentum. Each success builds confidence that creates more success. There's identity momentum. You see yourself as your best self, so acting otherwise feels inauthentic. These levels of momentum work synergistically, each reinforcing the others. Let me describe what it feels like when you've built real momentum toward your best self. You wake up and your morning routine happens almost automatically. You don't negotiate with yourself about whether to do it. You just do it because that's who you are. Throughout the day, when choice points arise, your best self response is your default. Not because you're trying hard, but because you've wired that response through repetition. When obstacles arise, you handle them with confidence because you've handled obstacles before and proven your capability. The compound effect of daily becoming is profound. Your best self today is creating your best self tomorrow. The discipline you practice today makes discipline easier tomorrow. The choices you make today shape the choices available tomorrow. Everything compounds. And just like financial compound interest grows slowly at first, then explodes exponentially, your compound growth toward your best self follows the same pattern. This is why the early phase is so crucial and so challenging. You're putting in maximum effort for minimum visible results. You're trusting a process whose benefits haven't materialized yet. Many people quit during this phase, thinking this isn't working. But it is working. The results just aren't visible yet. They're accumulating beneath the surface, and one day they'll break through in ways that seem sudden, but are actually the result of all that hidden accumulation. There's a transformation threshold I want you to understand. On one side of this threshold, being your best self requires constant effort and discipline. On the other side, being your best self is your natural state, and deviating from it requires effort. Crossing this threshold is the goal, and you cross it through sustained momentum, showing up as your best self consistently until it becomes who you are, not just what you do. How long does it take to cross this threshold? It varies by person and by habit, but generally, we're talking months, not weeks. Maybe 3 months of consistent daily practice for some habits. Maybe 6 months for deeper identity shifts. Maybe a year for comprehensive life transformation. This might sound like a long time, but consider, time will pass anyway. In a year, you'll be a year older. The question is, will you also be your best self? One powerful aspect of momentum is that it creates what I call an upward spiral. Your best self behaviors create positive results. Those results increase confidence and motivation. That confidence and motivation makes best self behaviors easier, which creates more positive results, which increases confidence further. It's a self-reinforcing cycle that, once started, continues to strengthen. This is the opposite of the downward spiral many people experience with their old self. Old self behaviors create negative results. Those results decrease confidence. That decreased confidence makes old self behaviors more likely, which creates more negative results, which decreases confidence further. Breaking out of the downward spiral requires conscious intervention, the kind of intervention we've been discussing throughout this book. Here's something crucial about maintaining momentum. You protect it fiercely. Once you've built momentum toward your best self, maintaining it becomes your top priority, because you understand that rebuilding lost momentum is far harder than maintaining existing momentum. This means you don't casually skip best self habits. You don't say just this once because you know that just this once is how momentum dies. This doesn't mean rigidity. It means conscientiousness. If you need to adapt your routine due to circumstances, you adapt while maintaining the core identity. Traveling for work, you find a way to maintain your morning practice, even if abbreviated. Dealing with a crisis, you maintain your most essential habits, even if minimally. You are protecting the momentum because you respect how hard you work to build it. Let me talk about what I call momentum multipliers, factors that accelerate your progress toward your best self. The first multiplier is environment. When your physical environment supports your best self, momentum builds faster. Remove temptations. Add reminders. Create spaces that facilitate your habits. Surround yourself with your best self cues. Your environment either supports your momentum or undermines it. Design it intentionally. The second multiplier is community. When you're surrounded by people living at the level of their best selves, you naturally rise to that level. Peer effects are powerful. Find or create community with people who share your commitment to growth, not to compare or compete, but to support and inspire. When everyone around you is becoming their best self, it normalizes the effort and celebrates the journey. The third multiplier is documentation. When you track your progress through journaling, photos, metrics, whatever works for you, you create visible evidence of your transformation. This evidence fuels momentum because you can see that your efforts are working. It's easy to discount progress when it's invisible. It's hard to discount progress when you have photo evidence or metrics or journal entries showing how far you've come. The fourth multiplier is celebration. When you acknowledge and celebrate your progress, you're reinforcing the behaviors that created it. Most people are terrible at celebrating their own wins. They immediately shift focus to what's next without pausing to appreciate what they've accomplished. Your best self celebrates progress, not to become complacent, but to reinforce. This is working. I'm doing it. I'm becoming who I want to be. Now let's talk about what happens when you've built significant momentum and are well on your way to becoming your best self. Something remarkable occurs. Your best self starts attracting better opportunities, better relationships, better circumstances. It's not magic. It's natural consequence. When you show up as your best self, you create value. People notice. Opportunities find you. Doors open that were previously closed. This creates even more momentum because now external reality is reinforcing your internal transformation. You're not just feeling better internally. Your life is actually improving externally. This is important because it makes the journey sustainable. If becoming your best self only felt good internally, but your external life got worse, you'd eventually abandon it. But when both internal and external improve, you're all in. There's also identity reinforcement through action. Every time you act as your best self, you're strengthening that identity. You're proving to yourself, this is who I am. Over time, this identity becomes so strong that acting otherwise feels like betraying yourself. You wouldn't steal even if you could get away with it because I'm not someone who steals. Similarly, you don't skip your workout or eat terribly or neglect your growth because I'm not someone who does that. That's not who I am anymore. This identity level integration is the ultimate goal. When your best self is not something you're trying to be, but simply who you are, you've succeeded. You've become your best self. Not perfectly, not completely, but substantially, authentically, really. And from this foundation, you continue to evolve, grow, expand, because your best self is committed to lifelong becoming. Let me address a question that might be arising. When do I arrive? When am I done becoming my best self? The truth is never, and that's beautiful. Becoming your best self is not a destination. It's a direction. You never arrive because there's always another level, always more growth possible, always new expressions of your potential waiting to emerge. This might sound exhausting, never arriving, never being done, but it's actually liberating. It means you're never behind because there's no finish line. It means every day offers new opportunity for becoming. It means at 30 or 50 or 70, you can still be becoming more of who you're capable of being. Your best self is not static. It evolves as you evolve, and you evolve continuously if you're committed to the journey. As we close this chapter on momentum and becoming unstoppable, I want you to feel the power of what you're building. Every day you show up as your best self, you're adding to the momentum. Every choice aligned with your vision strengthens the identity. Every obstacle navigated builds the resilience. Every habit maintained reinforces the pattern. All of it compounds into an unstoppable force that carries you toward the fullest expression of who you're capable of becoming. You're not just building habits. You're building momentum. You're not just changing behaviors. You're becoming unstoppable in your commitment to your best self. And once you're unstoppable, once you've crossed the transformation threshold, once your best self is your identity rather than your aspiration, everything changes. Not because life gets easier, but because you've become stronger. Keep building that momentum. Keep becoming. That's what your best self does. Always. Conclusion. You are becoming your best self now. We've reached the end of this book, but not the end of your journey. In fact, this is just the beginning. Because the moment you finish listening to these words, you face a choice. A choice between two paths that diverge dramatically in where they lead. One path leads back to who you were, comfortable, familiar, safe, limited. The other path leads forward to who you're becoming, challenging, uncertain, growth-filled, limitless. Which will you choose? I want to take a moment here, before we continue, to acknowledge something important. You made it to the end. That might sound like a small thing, but it's not. Completion is rare. Most people start books, courses, programs with great intentions and never finish. They get distracted, lose motivation, convince themselves they'll come back to it later. But you didn't do that. You stayed engaged. You invested the time. You gave this material your attention. That says something significant about who you already are and who you're becoming. Your best self completes things. Your best self follows through. You just demonstrated that quality by being here, now, at the conclusion. Everything we've discussed in this book comes down to one simple truth. You become your best self not through one dramatic transformation, but through thousands of small choices compounded over time. It's the choice to get up when the alarm goes off rather than hitting snooze. The choice to honor your values even when it's inconvenient. The choice to maintain your habits even when motivation is low. The choice to face obstacles rather than retreat. The choice to keep growing even when growth is uncomfortable. These choices feel small in the moment, insignificant even. Any single choice barely moves the needle. Skip one workout. No big deal. You can make it up tomorrow. Eat poorly one day. It won't change anything. Avoid one difficult conversation. You can have it later. But that's not how it works. These seemingly insignificant choices compound. They accumulate. They build momentum in one direction or another. String together enough right choices. And one day you look in the mirror and see your best self looking back. Not because of one heroic moment, but because of thousands of small, right choices made consistently over time. And here's the inverse that's equally true. String together enough wrong choices, and one day you wake up wondering how you ended up so far from who you meant to become. Not because of one catastrophic failure, but because of thousands of small compromises that seemed inconsequential at the time. The gap between your current self and your best self is filled with choices. Choices you make hourly, daily, weekly. And each choice is either widening that gap or closing it. There's no neutral. You're either becoming more of your best self or less. Always moving in one direction or the other. The question is, which direction are you choosing? Let's revisit where we've been together on this journey, because integration is crucial. Transformation doesn't happen through information alone. It happens through integration, taking what you've learned and weaving it into the fabric of who you are. We started by defining your best self, getting crystal clear on what that means for you specifically. Not some generic ideal, but your unique expression of fullest potential. Without that clarity, you're shooting at a target you can't see. With that clarity, every choice has a clear reference point. Does this move me toward my best self or away from it? That clarity is your North Star. When you're tired and tempted to skip your morning routine, your best self vision reminds you why it matters. When you're faced with a difficult choice between what's easy and what's right, your best self vision shows you the path forward. When you're discouraged and wondering if all this effort is worth it, your best self vision reconnects you with why you started. This clarity is not just helpful, it's essential. It transforms vague desires for improvement into specific, actionable direction. We built a foundation of self-discipline, not as punishment, but as self-love expressed through action. This might be the most important reframe in this entire book. Most people see discipline as deprivation, as forcing yourself to do things you hate, as constant suffering in pursuit of distant rewards. But that's not what discipline is for your best self. Discipline is you at your highest level, taking care of you at every level. It's future you loving present you enough to make hard choices. It's recognizing that temporary discomfort is the price of lasting satisfaction. We learned that discipline compounds, that it gets easier with practice, that it becomes who you are rather than just what you do. In the beginning, discipline is a struggle. Every right choice requires conscious effort, willpower, determination. But as you build the discipline muscle through consistent use, something shifts. The disciplined choice becomes the default. The undisciplined choice starts to feel wrong. You cross the threshold where maintaining discipline is easier than breaking it. And once you cross that threshold, your transformation accelerates dramatically because you are no longer fighting yourself. You're aligned. We confronted the old self, the patterns, beliefs, and behaviors that keep pulling you back toward who you were. This was perhaps the most challenging part of the journey because it required honesty that can be painful. It's uncomfortable to acknowledge the ways you've been self-sabotaging, the patterns you've been repeating, the limiting beliefs you've been accepting as truth. But this confrontation is necessary. You cannot transform what you will not acknowledge. You cannot break patterns you pretend don't exist. We learned that becoming your best self requires releasing your old self, not with shame or judgment, but with gratitude for its service and commitment to moving beyond it. Your old self was doing its best with the awareness it had. It was trying to keep you safe, trying to protect you from pain, trying to help you belong. It just used strategies that no longer serve who you're becoming. So you thank it, recognize it, and consciously choose differently. We learn to interrupt old patterns and install new ones, understanding that you don't eliminate old behaviors by fighting them directly. You crowd them out by fully occupying yourself with new behaviors. We design daily habits that make your best self your default self. We learned that habits are the building blocks of transformation, that they're how we make our best self behaviors automatic rather than effortful. This is where the theoretical becomes intensely practical. It's not enough to know what your best self would do. You need systems that ensure you actually do it, day after day, until it becomes who you are. We learn to build habits sequentially rather than simultaneously, to stack them strategically for maximum efficiency, to protect them fiercely once established, because rebuilding lost momentum is far harder than maintaining existing momentum. We develop strategies for navigating obstacles, understanding that obstacles are not interruptions to the journey, but the journey itself. This perspective shift is transformative. Most people see obstacles as evidence they're on the wrong path, as signs they should quit, as proof that becoming their best self isn't meant for them. But obstacles are where transformation actually happens. Smooth sailing doesn't build character. Challenges do. Setbacks do. Difficulties do. Each obstacle you navigate makes you more capable, more resilient, more equipped for the next challenge. We learned that challenges are where transformation happens, that setbacks are temporary, that resilience is built through difficulty. We learn to be anti-fragile, not just bouncing back, but becoming stronger through adversity. And finally, we explored momentum and how it makes you unstoppable. We learned that consistent action compounds into powerful momentum that eventually makes being your best self easier than not being your best self. We learned that there's a transformation threshold, a point where your best self-identity becomes so strong that deviating from it feels inauthentic. We learned to build and protect that momentum, to celebrate progress, to cross the transformation threshold and enter a new way of being where your best self is no longer something you're trying to become, but simply who you are. Now, here in this conclusion, I want to tell you something crucial. You are not starting your journey to your best self. You're already on it. The moment you picked up this book, the moment you committed to listening, the moment you engaged with these ideas, you were already becoming. The transformation has already begun. You are already different than you were when you started. You already have new awareness, new tools, new commitment. You already see yourself and your life differently. That shift in perception is the beginning of transformation, because you cannot create change without first seeing what needs to change. You cannot become your best self without first having a vision of what that looks like. And now you have that vision. Your best self is not waiting for you in some distant future. Your best self is emerging right now, in this moment, through your choice to prioritize growth, to engage with transformation, to commit to becoming. Every moment you spend thinking about your best self, you're strengthening the neural pathways associated with that identity. Every moment you spend learning about transformation, you're building the knowledge base you'll use to create it. Every moment you spend envisioning who you're becoming, you're programming your subconscious to notice opportunities to be that person. The work has already begun. The transformation is already happening. You are already becoming. But knowledge is not enough. Awareness is not enough. Intention is not enough. What matters now is action. Not perfect action. Not massive action all at once. Just the next right action. The next choice that aligns with your best self. Then the next. Then the next. That's how transformation actually happens. One choice at a time. Compounded over time. So let me ask you, what's the next right choice? What's one action you can take in the next 24 hours that your best self would take? Maybe it's writing your best self statement, spending 30 minutes getting crystal clear on who you're becoming across the 5 dimensions we discussed: values, strengths, habits, relationships, and mindset. Maybe it's committing to one new morning habit and doing it tomorrow morning before anything else. Maybe it's going to bed at a time tonight that allows adequate sleep so you can wake up energized and ready to show up as your best self tomorrow. Maybe it's having a conversation you've been avoiding, one that your best self would have with honesty and courage. Maybe it's eliminating one behavior that doesn't serve you, deleting an app that wastes your time, throwing out junk food that undermines your health, ending a relationship that drains your energy. What's the one next step? Not 10 steps. One step. Commit to it. Now. Not later. Now. That's how your best self emerges. Through immediate commitment, followed by consistent action. I want to address something that might be arising as we conclude doubt. Part of you might be thinking, this sounds great in theory, but can I really do this? Can I really become my best self? What if I fail? What if I try my hardest and I'm still not enough? What if I'm just not built for this level of discipline and growth? What if this works for other people, but not for me? This doubt is normal. It's natural. It's your old self's last-ditch effort to keep you safe in the familiar, because change is threatening to the old self, even positive change, even necessary change, because change means uncertainty, and uncertainty feels dangerous to the part of you that just wants to survive. But your best self doesn't need certainty before taking action. Your best self doesn't need to know the outcome before beginning. Your best self doesn't need guarantee of success before trying. Your best self takes action and builds certainty through experience. Your best self understands that belief follows behavior, not the other way around. You don't need to believe you can become your best self before you start. You just need to be willing to begin. The belief comes later, earned through the evidence you create by showing up, by following through, by keeping commitments to yourself. Every time you do what you said you'd do, you're building the belief that you're someone who follows through. That belief becomes unshakable truth over time, built brick by brick through consistent action. Here's what I know with complete certainty. You have everything you need to become your best self. You don't need more resources, more time, more support, more anything external. Those things might help, but they're not requirements. They're not what's stopping you. What you need is already within you. The capacity to choose, the ability to persist, the courage to face discomfort, the commitment to growth. You have all of it. You've always had it. You've just been waiting for the right moment to use it. This is that moment. Not when you feel more ready. Not when circumstances are better. Not when you have more support or fewer obstacles. Now, this moment, with what you have, where you are, who you are, that's enough. You're enough. You always have been. You just need to start acting like it. Your best self is not some impossible ideal that exists only in imagination, reserved for people with better genetics or better childhoods or better circumstances. Your best self is the fullest expression of who you already are. It's you with your strengths fully developed. It's you living in alignment with your deepest values. It's you showing up fully in your life. It's you without the limitations of old patterns and limiting beliefs. It's you as you're meant to be. And it's absolutely, completely, totally achievable. Not easy. Not fast. Not without effort and discipline and persistence. But achievable. Within your reach. Waiting for you to claim it through the choices you make starting today. The journey won't be smooth. There will be days when you fall back into old patterns. Days when you skip your habits. Days when obstacles feel overwhelming. Days when you doubt everything. Days when you wonder if it's worth it. Days when you want to quit. This is normal. This is expected. This is part of the process. Everyone who's ever become their best self has had these days. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is not that successful people never struggle. It's that they keep going despite the struggle. They use setbacks as data, not as identity. They treat themselves with compassion while maintaining commitment. They fall down 7 times and get up 8. What matters is not that you never stumble. What matters is that you keep getting back up, that you use every setback as information about what needs adjustment, not as evidence of your inadequacy, that you treat yourself with the same compassion you'd show a good friend who's trying something difficult, that you remember why you started when the journey gets hard, that you celebrate small wins instead of only acknowledging the destination, that you trust the process even when results aren't yet visible, that you commit to the journey, not just the outcome. Your best self is not someone who never struggles. Your best self is someone who struggles and grows stronger through it, who faces challenges and learns from them, who makes mistakes and adjusts course, who falls and gets back up, who doubts but keeps going anyway, who's scared but courageous, who's imperfect but improving. That's the real transformation. Not becoming perfect, but becoming resilient, adaptable, committed to growth no matter what. That's what your best self looks like. Not flawless, not finished, but persistently, consistently, courageously becoming. I want to leave you with a powerful visualization exercise. Close your eyes for a moment and picture yourself 5 years from now. You've been living as your best self consistently. You've maintained your habits. You've navigated obstacles. You've built unstoppable momentum. You've crossed the transformation threshold. What has your life become? How do you feel waking up each morning? How do you carry yourself? What have you accomplished? What relationships do you have? How has your health transformed? How has your work evolved? How has your sense of self deepened? How has your confidence grown? How has your peace expanded? Really feel this vision. Let it become vivid, detailed, emotional. Don't just see it, feel it. Feel what it's like to wake up as that person. Feel what it's like to move through your day with that level of energy, clarity, and purpose. Feel what it's like to look in the mirror and genuinely like who you see. Feel what it's like to go to bed at night knowing you showed up as your best self. This is not fantasy. This is not wishful thinking. This is your achievable future if you commit to the journey. If you make the choice to become your best self, day after day, choice after choice, habit after habit, that future is waiting for you, not as a distant possibility, but as an inevitable outcome of consistent commitment. Now open your eyes and realize the person you just visualized is who you're becoming right now, not in 5 years. Now, every choice you make is either moving you toward that vision or away from it. Every habit you maintain is building that person. Every obstacle you navigate is forging that character. Every discipline you practice is strengthening that identity. Your best self 5 years from now is being created by your choices today, by your actions this week, by your habits this month, by your responses to challenges this year. The future is not separate from the present. The future is created by the present, choice by choice, day by day. So make today count. Make this moment count. Choose to be your best self now, in whatever small way is available to you in this moment. Then do it again tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after. String together enough of these choices, and you won't need to try to become your best self. You will be your best self. Not perfectly, but really, meaningfully, substantially, authentically. Let me tell you what happens when you commit to this journey fully. At first, nothing seems to change. You're making the choices, doing the habits, showing up daily, but results feel invisible. This is the phase where most people quit. They think it's not working because they don't see dramatic transformation immediately. But transformation is happening. It's just happening beneath the surface, in ways you can't yet see. Your neural pathways are rewiring. Your identity is shifting. Your momentum is building. Trust this phase. Stay consistent through it. Because on the other side of this invisible phase is visible breakthrough. Then one day, you notice something. Maybe you handle a challenge differently than you would have before. Maybe you make a choice aligned with your best self without even thinking about it. Maybe someone comments on how you've changed. Maybe you just feel different, more grounded, more confident, more yourself. These small signs of transformation are crucial to acknowledge and celebrate because they're evidence that your efforts are working. They're proof that you're becoming. They're momentum that will compound into even greater transformation. And if you keep going, if you maintain your commitment through the invisible phase and celebrate the small wins and persist through setbacks, you reach the transformation threshold. This is the point where being your best self becomes your default, where the disciplined choices feel natural, where the habits run automatically, where your identity has fully integrated. At this point, you're not trying to become your best self. You are your best self. And from this foundation, you continue to grow, to evolve, to expand into even fuller expression of your potential. As we part, I want you to remember, this is not goodbye. This is hello. Hello to the person you're becoming. Hello to the journey that transforms everything. Hello to your best self, which is not waiting in some distant future, but is emerging right now, in this moment, through your commitment to growth. Every time you make a choice aligned with your best self, you're saying hello to who you're becoming. Every time you maintain a habit that serves your growth, you're saying hello to your transformation. Every time you navigate an obstacle without quitting, you're saying hello to your resilience. You are becoming your best self. Not someday. Not when you're ready. Not when circumstances are perfect. Now. Right now. In this moment. Through this choice. And the next choice. And the next. Keep choosing. Keep becoming. Keep growing. Your best self is not waiting for you to arrive. Your best self is waiting for you to begin. And you've begun. The moment you engage with this material, you began. The moment you committed to understanding, you began. The moment you decided that who you are is not who you have to stay, you began. The journey continues. The transformation accelerates. Your best self emerges. And it all starts with one decision, the decision to begin. You've made that decision by engaging with this material. Now honor it with action. One choice at a time. One day at a time. One transformation at a time. Make your next choice one that your best self would make. Then make the next choice. Then the next. String them together into days, weeks, months, years of becoming. That's how transformation happens. That's how you close the gap between who you are and who you're meant to be. That's how you become your best self. Welcome to the rest of your life. Welcome to becoming your best self. Welcome to the journey that never ends because there's always another level of growth, always more potential waiting to be expressed, always new versions of your best self emerging as you evolve. This is not a destination you reach and you're done. This is a direction you move in for the rest of your life. And what a beautiful direction it is. Always toward more capability, more authenticity, more alignment, more contribution, more of who you are truly meant to be. Welcome home to who you've always been meant to be. Your best self is here, has always been here, will always be here, waiting not for perfect conditions or perfect readiness, but for your willingness to begin, to persist, to become. You're ready. You've always been ready. Now it's time to act like it. Go become your best self. Starting now. Starting here. Starting with this next choice. I believe in you. Your best self believes in you. Now it's time for you to believe in you. Let's go. Let's revisit where we've been together on this journey, because integration is crucial. We started by defining your best self, getting crystal clear on what that means for you specifically. Not some generic ideal, but your unique expression of fullest potential. Without that clarity, you're shooting at a target you can't see. With that clarity, every choice has a clear reference point. Does this move me toward my best self or away from it? We built the foundation of self-discipline, not as punishment, but as self-love expressed through action. We learned that discipline is what transforms vision into reality, intention into behavior, potential into expression. We learned that discipline compounds, that it gets easier with practice, that it becomes who you are rather than just what you do. We confronted the old self, the patterns, beliefs, and behaviors that keep pulling you back toward who you were. We learned that becoming your best self requires releasing your old self, not with shame or judgment, but with gratitude for its service and commitment to moving beyond it. We learned to interrupt old patterns and install new ones. We designed daily habits that make your best self your default self. We learned that habits are the building blocks of transformation, that they're how we make our best self behaviors automatic rather than effortful. We learned to build habits sequentially, to stack them strategically, to protect them fiercely. We developed strategies for navigating obstacles, understanding that obstacles are not interruptions to the journey, but the journey itself. We learned that challenges are where transformation happens, that setbacks are temporary, that resilience is built through difficulty. We learn to be anti-fragile, not just bouncing back, but becoming stronger through adversity. And finally, we explored momentum and how it makes you unstoppable. We learned that consistent action compounds into powerful momentum that eventually makes being your best self easier than not being your best self. We learned to build and protect that momentum, to celebrate progress, to cross the transformation threshold. Now, here in this conclusion, I want to tell you something crucial. You are not starting your journey to your best self. You are already on it. The moment you picked up this book, the moment you committed to listening, the moment you engaged with these ideas, you were already becoming. The transformation has already begun. You are already different than you were when you started. You already have new awareness, new tools, new commitment. Your best self is not waiting for you in some distant future. Your best self is emerging right now, in this moment, through your choice to prioritize growth, to engage with transformation, to commit to becoming. Every moment you spend thinking about your best self, you're strengthening the neural pathways associated with that identity. Every moment you spend learning about transformation, you're building the knowledge base you'll use to create it. But knowledge is not enough. Awareness is not enough. Intention is not enough. What matters now is action. Not perfect action. Not massive action all at once. Just the next right action. The next choice that aligns with your best self. Then the next. Then the next. That's how transformation actually happens. One choice at a time. Compounded over time. So let me ask you, what's the next right choice? What's one action you can take in the next 24 hours that your best self would take? Maybe it's writing your best self statement. Maybe it's committing to one new morning habit. Maybe it's going to bed at a time that allows adequate sleep. Maybe it's having a conversation you've been avoiding. Maybe it's eliminating one behavior that doesn't serve you. What's the one next step? Commit to it. Now, not later. Now. That's how your best self emerges, through immediate commitment, followed by consistent action. I want to address something that might be arising as we conclude doubt. Part of you might be thinking, this sounds great in theory, but can I really do this? Can I really become my best self? What if I fail? What if I try and I'm still not enough? This doubt is normal. It's your old self's last-ditch effort to keep you safe in the familiar. But your best self doesn't need certainty before taking action. Your best self takes action and builds certainty through experience. You don't need to believe you can become your best self before you start. You just need to be willing to begin. The belief comes later, earned through the evidence you create by showing up, by following through, by keeping commitments to yourself. Every time you do what you said you'd do, you're building the belief that you're someone who follows through. That belief becomes unshakable truth over time. Here's what I know with complete certainty. You have everything you need to become your best self. You don't need more resources, more time, more support, more anything. Those things might help, but they're not requirements. What you need is already within you. The capacity to choose, the ability to persist, the courage to face discomfort, the commitment to growth. You have all of it. You've always had it. Now you're going to use it. Your best self is not some impossible ideal that exists only in imagination. Your best self is the fullest expression of who you already are. It's you with your strengths fully developed. It's you living in alignment with your deepest values. It's you showing up fully in your life. It's you without the limitations of old patterns and limiting beliefs. It's you as you're meant to be. And it's absolutely, completely, totally achievable. The journey won't be smooth. There will be days when you fall back into old patterns. Days when you skip your habits. Days when obstacles feel overwhelming. Days when you doubt everything. This is normal. This is expected. This is part of the process. What matters is not that you never stumble. What matters is that you keep getting back up, that you use every setback as data, not as identity, that you treat yourself with compassion while maintaining commitment. Your best self is not someone who never struggles. Your best self is someone who struggles and grows stronger through it, who faces challenges and learns from them, who makes mistakes and adjusts course, who falls and gets back up. That's the real transformation. Not becoming perfect, but becoming resilient, adaptable, committed to growth no matter what. I want to leave you with a powerful visualization exercise. Close your eyes for a moment and picture yourself 5 years from now. You've been living as your best self consistently. You've maintained your habits. You've navigated obstacles. You've built unstoppable momentum. What has your life become? How do you feel waking up each morning? How do you carry yourself? What have you accomplished? What relationships do you have? How has your health transformed? How has your work evolved? How has your sense of self deepened? Really feel this vision. Let it become vivid, detailed, emotional. This is not fantasy. This is your achievable future if you commit to the journey. If you make the choice to become your best self, day after day, choice after choice, habit after habit, that future is waiting for you, not as a distant possibility, but as an inevitable outcome of consistent commitment. Now open your eyes and realize the person you just visualized is who you're becoming right now, not in 5 years. Now, every choice you make is either moving you toward that vision or away from it. Every habit you maintain is building that person. Every obstacle you navigate is forging that character. Your best self 5 years from now is being created by your choices today. So make today count. Make this moment count. Choose to be your best self now, in whatever small way is available to you in this moment. Then do it again tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after. String together enough of these choices, and you won't need to try to become your best self. You will be your best self. Not perfectly, but really, meaningfully, substantially. As we part, I want you to remember, this is not goodbye. This is hello. Hello to the person you're becoming. Hello to the journey that transforms everything. Hello to your best self, which is not waiting in some distant future, but is emerging right now, in this moment, through your commitment to growth. You are becoming your best self. Not someday. Not when you're ready. Now. Right now. In this moment. Through this choice. And the next choice. And the next. Keep choosing. Keep becoming. Keep growing. Your best self is waiting, and it's time to become them. The journey continues. The transformation accelerates. Your best self emerges. And it all starts with one decision. The decision to begin. You've made that decision by engaging with this material. Now honor it with action. One choice at a time. One day at a time. One transformation at a time. Welcome to the rest of your life. Welcome to becoming your best self. Welcome home to who you've always been meant to be.